Welcome back to our channel, where we continue the CompTIA Network Plus video series. Still on the third chapter covering physical media. Today we're looking at Module B, optical media or fiber optic cables. Optical media uses light rather than electricity to transmit data. Fiber optic cables offer huge advantages in bandwidth, range and resistance to electromagnetic interference, making them an ideal for WAN backbones and increasingly for LANs as well. Optical fibers act like a waveguide for electromagnetic signals. Now, instead of carrying electrical current like copper cables, they transmit light, usually near infrared, from a laser or LED through a thin, highly purified glass fiber. The construction of fiber optic cables or fibers is what makes this possible. Now let's break it down. First, we've got the core. This is the transparent fiber that carries the signal, usually made of silica glass, far purer than consumer glass, with diameters around 100 microns. Second, the cladding, a surrounding layer with a different refractive index. It keeps the light within the core by reflecting it back, ensuring the signal travels down the cable. Next, the buffer, a plastic protective coating, typically 250 microns thick for indoor cables and about 900 microns for outdoor use. It strengthens the fiber without affecting optical properties. We've got the strength member, which is materials like Kevlar, fiberglass, or steel that reduce stress and protect the glass fibers from breaking. Last, we've got the outer jacket, the protective layer, usually color-coded to help technicians identify the fiber type. Now, in short, fiber optic or optical fibers are a precise combination of glass and protective layers built to carry light signals over long distances with minimal loss, maximum protection. This design makes fiber optics one of the most powerful transmission media available today. There are many ways to classify optical cables. Unlike copper cables, optical cables don't need EMI shielding, but outdoor and underground use require more physical protection. Plenum grade optical cables are made from fire-resistant materials, while multi-fiber cables include multiple optical fibers in one jacket, each working independently. One of the most important distinctions is between single mode fiber or SMF and multi-mode fiber MMF. The difference lies in the core size, which greatly affects how light travels through the cable. Now, a single mode fiber has a very small core, just 8 to 10 microns. It uses light wavelengths of around 1310 or 1550 nanometers. Because the core is so small, light travels in a straight line or a single mode down the fiber. Multi-mode fiber has a much thicker core, usually 50 to 62.5 microns, and uses shorter wavelengths such as 850 or 1300 nanometers. With more room in the core, light reflects along multiple paths or modes through the cable. Because multi-mode fibers allow multiple light paths, they tend to interfere with each other, which increases attenuation. This limits multi-mode to shorter distance, usually between 500 to 2000 meters depending on the speed. By contrast, single-mode fibers can carry data much further, making them the standard for long-distance WAN and MAN backbones. The main advantage of multi-mode is cost. It uses cheaper LEDs and connectors, making it popular for LAN backbones. Single mode, however, remains the best choice for long-haul, high-bandwidth networks. Today, the performance gap continues to narrow, with both fiber types being used in an ever-increasingly variety of applications. Where network demands increase and optical technologies advance, wavelength division multiplexing or WDM becomes a game changer. WDM significantly boosts fiber capacity by allowing multiple signals to travel over the same fiber, each on its own wavelength of light. Instead of laying more cables, network operators can simply upgrade optics, which reduce cost and increase efficiency. WDM works much like frequency division multiplexing, or FDM, using a lower frequency signal. The difference is a terminology, radio band signal, as described by frequency, while optical signals are described by wavelength. Different wavelengths can carry independent signals, increasing total throughput or enabling full duplex communication over a single fiber. Now there are two main standards for WDM. Coarse WDM or CWDM channels are spaced 20 nanometers apart. Traditional fibers can carry up to 8 unusable channels, while newer fibers support up to 18. CWDM is cost-effective and widely available. Dense WDM or DWM channels are spaced only 0.5 nanometers apart, allowing many more channels per fiber. DWDM supports optical repeaters for long-distance transmission across hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. While powerful, DWDM is much more expensive, requiring higher quality lasers and precise filters for individual channels. Joining two optical fibers is more complicated than joining two electrical cables. The fiber cores must be cut and polished with a smooth surface so that light isn't disrupted or reflected. Afterwards, they need to be permanently spliced or held securely in place. Most optical connectors use a funnel, a rigid cylinder that holds the fiber end tightly in alignment. Funnels can be made of plastic, ceramic, or stainless steel. By pushing two funnels together, technicians achieve tight alignment. Now, originally connectors used flat funnels pressed together. However, imperfections in polishing created tiny air gaps, causing excessive return loss, especially in sensitive single-mode fiber cores. To solve this, engineers developed a physical contact connector, or PC. Its curved funnel reduced the air gap. Refinements produced super physical contact, or SPC, or ultra physical contact, UPC, connectors which improve alignment further. But in high sensitivity applications, even UPC may not be enough. Frequent reconnection can damage the surface. The solution is the angled physical contact connector, or APC. It's cut at an 8-degree angle, which minimizes return loss and wear from frequent reconnections. APC connectors can only be used with APC connectors. Mixing connector types result in weaker performance. Now, in practice, funnels are used in both male and female connectors. Female connectors are often grouped in a fiber distribution panel, which organizes optical connections in data centers and telecoms closets. Now, in short, flat is basic, high return loss. PC, UPC, improved contact, reduces loss. APC is angled, best performance for sensitive SMF. Optical connectors come in many varieties, and one of the biggest challenges in optical networking is making all the different standards. There are over 100 types of commercial use, but only a dozen or so are common. These connectors differ in two main ways: the diameter of the funnel used to hold the fiber and the style of coupling. Some connectors simply push together, others screw in place, some use a bayonet lug, while others snap into position. Dust covers are often included to protect the connector when it's not in use. And if two connector types share the same funnel size, hybrid connectors can often link them together. The most common connectors, ST or the straight tip, it uses a 2.5mm round funnel and a bayonet coupling. It was one of the first popular multi-mode fiber connectors, but it's less common for single mode. Today it's being replaced by smaller formats. FC or ferrule connector, also 2.5mm round but uses a screw type connector. This was an early single mode connector but is now less common. SC or subscriber connector, another 2.5mm round ferrule but uses a push-pull snap coupling. Very popular, often seen in duplex format as a SC-DC. LC or lucent connector, a smaller option at 1.25mm round. This small form factor connector is widely used today and is often chosen for high density installation. MTRJ or mechanical transfer registered jack. It's a rectangular connector with two fibers in a single housing. It looks a bit like the RJ45 plug but is designed for fiber optics. MPO or multi-fiber push-on, a high-density connector originally built for trunk cables. MPO connectors can support 8, 12 or even 24 fibers, with some versions supporting up to 72. While older connectors like FDDI, OptiJack, Alex5 and Volition are more obsolete, modern networks rely heavily on ST, SC, LC or MTRJ and the MPO connectors. Each has its place depending on whether the priority is size, density or durability. When optical fibers are used for long runs, sometimes spanning tens of kilometers, breaks or extensions are inevitable. Unlike copper cables, you can't just twist the wires together. Instead, optical fibers must be carefully spliced to ensure an unobstructed path for the light signal. There are two main types of splicing: mechanical splicing and fusion splicing. Now, mechanical splicing, the fiber ends are stripped, cleaved flat and then held together inside a small device. This device aligns the fiber and uses an index matching gel to reduce light reflection. Mechanical splices are inexpensive and quick to perform. However, they typically have slightly higher insertion loss compared to other methods. Fusion splicing provides a more permanent, reliable solution. Here, a fusion splicer heats and melts the fiber tips together, creating a continuous glass connection. Once spliced, the joint is reinforced with a protective sleeve and clamp. Fusion splicing has lower insertion loss, produces no reflections, and delivers a stronger connection. However, it requires specialized equipment, training, and more time to perform. In short, mechanical splicing is quick, inexpensive, but temporary. Fusion splicing is permanent, precise, and professional. Both methods have their place. Mechanical splicing is ideal for quick repairs, while fusion splicing is the preferred choice for long-term reliability in high-performance networks. When it comes to terminating fiber connectors, the process is more complex than copper. The fiber tip must be fixed firmly in the ferrule, then shaped and polished to minimize signal loss. There are several methods to accomplish this. Adhesive or polish termination. Now, in this method, a disassembled connector and ferrule with no fiber are used. The fiber is stripped, cleaned and placed in the ferrule housing with an adhesive, usually epoxy. Some adhesives are hot melted while others cure at room temperature. Once the adhesive is cured, the fiber is cleaved even with the ferrule and the whole tip is polished to the desired shape. This method provides high quality results, especially in factory conditions. However, it's slow and requires expertise to polish correctly. Because of this, adhesive and polish are less popular for field terminations today. The quick termination connector. Now, a quick termination connector already contains a factory polished ferrule with a fiber stub inside. To use it, you simply strip and cleave the fiber, insert it in the housing and lock it into place. While the quality isn't always as high as adhesive and polish, it must faster and more reliable in everyday practice. Another method is the pigtail. It's the short fiber optic cable, usually 3 meters long, with one end factory terminated and the other left exposed. Now, the exposed end is then spliced to the cable. often using a fusion splicer. Pigtails provide easy, high-quality termination and are widely used in practice. Each method, adhesive polish, quick connector, pigtail, it has its place. The right choice depends on the balance of quality, speed, and the specific requirements for the installation. Optical couplers and splitters play an important role in fiber networks. Now, an optical coupler can be as simple as a repair of jack to joint cables, similar to coax or UTP couplers. More specifically, a fiber coupler is a type of splitter. It fuses multiple fibers on one end to join them at a single core. Now, optical coupler works much like a coax splitter or network tap. It can send a single input to multiple outputs. However, the more you split the signal, the weaker it becomes. Wavelength sensitive couplers are used in wavelength division multiplexing or WDM. They can combine inputs of different wavelengths into a single fiber or split them into separate fibers. One limitation though is that you cannot combine multiple inputs of the same wavelength into one fiber. They will interfere with each other. In short, optical couplers and splitters are vital tools for signal distribution in fiber networks. They allow flexibility in managing connections, but must be used carefully to avoid interference and signal loss. High-speed optical and copper networks use a wide variety of connectors and cable standards. They're designed to meet very different needs for cost, distance, performance, and usability. This variety can make it challenging to unify devices across vendors, unlike conventional Ethernet LANs. It means buying or replacing networking devices like routers and switches for these high-speed networks can be difficult. High-speed devices often use hot swappable modular transceiver ports. These allow a single device to support many physical standards. A transceiver itself is a layer 1 device. It plugs into a switch, router or NIC slot and encodes decode signals sent over a physical medium. If you want to use a different connector, a different wavelength, or switch between optical and copper connectors, all you need to do is swap out the transceiver. Modular transceivers exist in several standards and form factors. Some of the most popular include the GBIC or Gigabit Interface Converter. Introduced in 1995, it supported speeds up to 1.25 gigabits per second, but now obsolete. SFP or Small Form Factor Pluggable, standardized in 2001, supports speeds up to 5 gigabits per second. Smaller version, Mini GBIC, is still used in older equipment. XFP or 10 gigabits per second Small Form Factor Pluggable, introduced 2002, supports speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. SPF Plus or Enhanced SPF, introduced 2006, supports up to 16 gigabits per second and is widely used today. Many SPF Plus ports are also backward compatible with SFP. QSFP or Quad Small Form Factor Pluggable, slightly larger than the SFP, it supports 4 connections in a single transceiver. Depending on the version, QSP or QSFP can support up to 100 gigabits per second. Remember, transceivers are designed to both send and receive. Duplex transceivers use 2 connectors, one to transmit and one to receive. Bidirectional or BiDi transceivers use a single cable to transmit and receive in both directions at different wavelengths. However, BiDi transceivers must be deployed in matching pairs. Signal strength is another crucial issue for high-speed optical connections. Effective strength depends on both the transmitter power and the receiver sensitivity, combined with attenuation over the link. Low transmitter power or receiver sensibility can compound these attenuation issues. Switches often report signal strength in decibel while others use milliwatts. To convert power, you can use the calculation P in milliwatts equals 1 milliwatt times 10 to the power of decibel milli times or divide by 10. Modular transceivers make high-speed networking flexible, scalable, adaptable to multiple standards. By simply swapping modules, you can support a wide variety of connections without replacing the entire device. Optical networks are becoming more common, but many networks are still not entire optical. Frequently, optical connections are reserved for backbones, long-distance links, while local switches and workstations connect using inexpensive copper. You might see this in an Ethernet campus area network where fiber connects buildings, but twisted pair copper connects devices inside. Even internet service providers often use fiber for high-speed backbone, but end users might still connect with cable or DSL. Here's the challenge. Single-mode, multi-mode cables cannot be directly connected. This is where media converters comes in. Now, a media converter is an active device that translates signal from one network type to another. You can convert single-mode fiber to twisted pair, multi-mode fiber to twisted pair, multi-mode to single-mode, or even fiber to coax. Some media converters include SFP or other modular connections to make them more flexible. This allows them to adapt to different standards and cable types. When used in their simplest form, media converters operate at the layer 1 of the OSI model, simply translating signals from one medium to another. However, more advanced converters can include additional functionality and operate as higher level devices. Media converters are an essential tool for bridging gaps between different cabling types. They make it possible to extend networks, integrate optical backbones, and maintain flexibility in both enterprise and service provider environments. When working with optical networks, traditional electrical testing tools don't apply. Optical fibers don't carry electrical conductivity, so you can't even use a multimeter. Instead, specialized optical testing tools are required. One way to check cable continuity is by shining a light source down an optical fiber and measure what comes out on the other end. Now, a visual fault indicator is a simple tool that sends a visible laser down a cable. It helps identify continuity and also reveals issues like damaged connectors or exposed cladding. If you see a glowing red light leaking, that indicates a fault. An optical power meter is a more advanced device. It uses a sensor to measure received power, calculate attenuation, and detect interference. This makes it usually not only for checking continuity, but also for assessing overall link performance. Now, other advanced optical testing tools include optical cable testers and certifiers, optical time domain reflectometers or OTDRs, and even optical loopback plugs. Some are designed for specific connector types, while others support multiple standards. Optical cable testing tools help maintain performance and detect problems before they impact the network. When working with optical connectors, many of the same issues you see in copper cabling can appear, but there's some unique challenges. One of the biggest differences is bend radius. Fiber has a far less flexible than copper, and a sharp bend or kink can disrupt the light path, even if the cable isn't visibly damaged. Other common problems include attenuation, when the cable is too long or has flaws, decreasing transparency. The solution: replace the cable, use a shorter run, or insert a repeater. Bad cable or connector caused by damage, poor splicing, or the wrong standard. To fix, replace the defective components. A dirty connector, even small dust particles can block light. Clean, polish the connector carefully. Bend radius limitation, tight bends can cause temporary or permanent damage. Straighten and replace damaged cables. You might also encounter mismatched connectors, wrong connector type or shape, incorrect transceivers, plugging the wrong module into a slot like a SFP versus a SFP+, a weak transceiver from aging or lower power, mismatched wavelengths for fiber types using an MMF when a SMF is required, a network hardware failure when the transceiver or the device itself is defective. The solution in each case is clear: replace, clean or upgrade the faulty component. Another important concept in the optical link budget, and it's about one cable or connector but the overall loss along an entire optical path. Typical loss values include 0.75 decibels per connector, 0.3 to 0.4 decibels per kilometer of fiber, 0.1 decibels per splice, and about 3 decibels for a safety margin. Now, if your total loss exceeds the budget, you'll start to experience failure. Good news, you can often solve problems by replacing field terminators, cleaning connectors, upgrading optical components, or using repeaters and amplifiers. Now that's it for optical media. Next, we'll be looking at the LAN standards. Go well, see you in the next video.